The message came on a Tuesday. After decades of sending signals into the void of space, humanity finally got an answer. The giant radio telescope in New Mexico picked up the transmission first. Within hours, every screen on Earth showed the same image: a being with blue-gray skin, 4 eyes, and a mouth that didn't move when it spoke. "People of Earth," the alien said in perfect English, "the Galactic Confederation welcomes you." 3 months later, Captain Alex Reed stood in front of the mirror adjusting his uniform. The Earth Defense Force had existed for only 5 years, created after scientists detected strange energy readings at the edge of the solar system. Now Reed, at 37, was about to become the first human to meet aliens face to face. "Don't mess this up," he told his reflection. The meeting place was a space station built in orbit around Earth by the aliens in just 2 weeks, a feat that would have taken humans years. Reed's shuttle docked with a soft hiss. His heart pounded as the airlock opened. 5 different alien species waited for him. The blue-gray being from the transmission stood in front. "Captain Reed," it said, "I am Ambassador Thrawn. Welcome to this historic moment." Reed stepped forward and offered his hand, then remembered the briefing. No touching. He quickly dropped his arm. "On behalf of Earth, we are honored to join the galactic community." Thrawn's 4 eyes blinked. "We have prepared a simple test of compatibility. Our atmospheres are similar, but not identical." The aliens watched Reed breathe their air without protection. One of them, a tall creature with scales and a crest on its head, whispered to another. Reed's translator picked it up. "The human doesn't even notice the methane content." Hours passed as Reed answered questions about Earth. The aliens seemed particularly interested in human resilience. "You sleep only once per day?" asked a small, furry alien. "Your species can continue functioning after broken bones?" asked another. "And you regularly consume substances that would poison other species, for pleasure?" Thrawn seemed disturbed by the concept of coffee. Reed began to notice something odd. The aliens kept their distance. When he moved suddenly, they flinched. The tallest alien, with hard plates covering its body, finally spoke directly to Reed. "I am General Krell of the Vorn Empire," it said. Its voice was like stones grinding together. "My species rules 37 worlds. We have eliminated 3 rival species in our history." Reed nodded politely. "Earth looks forward to peaceful relations with all species." Krell made a sound like scraping metal, perhaps laughter. "Your kind is soft. No natural armor. No claws. Weak muscles. How did you survive long enough to develop technology?" Before Reed could answer, Thrawn interrupted. "The Confederation offers Earth provisional membership. There will be cultural exchanges, trade agreements." "Waste of time," Krell said. "These creatures will never contribute meaningfully to the Confederation." Reed felt his face grow hot, but kept his expression neutral. "General, on Earth we have a saying: don't judge a book by its cover." "What is a book?" asked the furry alien. Krell stepped closer to Reed, towering over him. "Another saying: human. The galaxy belongs to the strong." Thrawn moved between them. "Enough, General." The council voted. As the meeting ended, Reed was given a data device containing the Confederation's history and laws. Thrawn walked him back to the airlock. "Captain," Thrawn said quietly, "I must warn you. The Vorn do not accept new species easily. They believe in natural hierarchy." "We can handle ourselves," Reed said. "Perhaps." Thrawn's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "But I suggest you read our records carefully, especially about species challenges." Species challenges, an ancient tradition, rarely invoked now, but still binding under Confederation law. Thrawn paused. The Vorn have not lost a challenge in 12,000 years. As Reed's shuttle returned to Earth, he felt uneasy. Humanity had dreamed of meeting aliens for centuries, imagining either saviors or conquerors. The reality was more complex. They weren't gods or monsters, just people with their own fears and prejudices. What troubled him most was Krell's parting words. We will watch your Earth closely, human. Very closely indeed. 6 months passed quickly. Earth buzzed with excitement about the aliens. People watched videos of the different species, learned about their cultures, and imagined traveling to distant worlds. But Captain Reed and world leaders worried. The data device from the Confederation revealed troubling facts about the Vorn. They believed strength was the only law that mattered. Reed was eating breakfast when the alarm sounded. A Vorn battleship had entered Earth orbit without warning. Its size shocked everyone. 5 times larger than anything humans had built. "They're sending a shuttle down," said Admiral Jones over the phone. "Just 1 passenger. They want to meet you specifically. Reed." 2 hours later, Reed stood at the landing site as the alien shuttle touched down. The door opened, and Commander Krell stepped out. In full battle armor, he stood nearly 8 feet tall. "Captain Reed," Krell said, "we meet again." Reed kept his voice steady. "This is an unexpected visit. The proper channels. I have no time for your human procedures." Krell handed Reed a metal sphere. "This is a formal species challenge. By Confederation law, you must accept." Reed had read about this in the Confederation files. A species challenge was an ancient tradition, a contest between 2 races. The winner gained status and territory. The loser often became servants. "Why are you doing this?" Reed asked. Krell's hard face showed no emotion. "Your kind spreads too quickly. You ask too many questions. You are unpredictable." Reed didn't take the sphere. "I need to discuss this with Earth's leadership." "You have 24 hours, Krell said. "After that, we will consider your refusal as surrender." The emergency meeting lasted all night. Scientists studied the sphere, confirming it was an official Confederation document. Leaders argued about what to do. "We can't possibly win against them," said Defense Minister Wu. "Their technology is centuries ahead of ours." "But if we refuse, we become their property," Reed pointed out. "The Confederation laws are clear." Ambassador Thrawn joined by video call. His 4 eyes looked tired. "I warned you about this possibility, Captain. The Vorn see your species as a threat." "A threat? We've barely left our own solar system," President Garcia said. Thrawn's voice was gentle. "It is not your current abilities that worry them. It is your potential. Humans learn too quickly. Your brains form new connections in ways other species cannot." "What are our chances if we accept the challenge?" Reed asked. Thrawn was silent for a long moment. "The challenge will take place on planet Crucible. It tests survival, intelligence, and combat. No species has defeated the Vorn there in 12,000 years." "Then we've already lost," Wu said. Reed studied the readings from the Vorn ship. Something didn't make sense. If they're so confident, why not just attack us? Why bother with this challenge? Thrawn's voice dropped. "Because they fear the Confederation's response if they attack without cause. But a challenge is legal. If you lose, they can claim Earth without starting a war." As morning came, Reed made his decision. He would lead the human team. The rules allowed 6 members. "I need our best," he told the president. "Not just soldiers. We need different skills." By afternoon, he had his team. Marina, a brilliant engineer who could build anything. Jackson, an ex-soldier who had survived 2 weeks alone in the Amazon. Tanya, who studied animal behavior. Leo, who spoke 7 languages. And Owen, a doctor who had worked in war zones. When Reed met Krell to accept the challenge, the alien seemed surprised. "You are either very brave or very foolish," Krell said. Reed handed back the sphere, now glowing to show acceptance. "Maybe humans are both." Krell made that metal scraping sound, his laugh. "In 3 days, we travel to Crucible. Prepare yourself, human. Your species will learn its proper place." As Krell left, Marina whispered, "Are we really doing this?" Reed watched the alien shuttle rise into the sky. "We are. And somehow, we're going to win." The journey to Crucible took 5 days. The human team traveled on a Confederation ship with observers from 7 different alien species. Reed and his team spent the time studying everything they could about the planet. It's like someone took all the worst places on Earth and put them together, Tanya said, looking at the scans. Acid lakes, extreme heat, frozen mountains, and animals that can eat through metal. Great, Jackson said. Sounds like a fun vacation. The Vorn stayed in their own part of the ship. Twice, Reed tried to speak with Krell, hoping to understand their enemy better. Both times, the commander refused to meet. They want us afraid, Reed told his team. Fear makes people make mistakes. Marina had been studying the Vorn biology files. They evolved on a high-gravity world. Their bones and muscles are much denser than ours. But that might be a weakness too. How? Leo asked. They might be strong, but they're slow. And they sink in water. On the final day, a small alien with purple skin approached Reed. It introduced itself as Ziv, a Confederation judge. I will explain the rules, Ziv said. 3 challenges over 3 days. Each tests different abilities. The team with the most points wins. If you die during a challenge, your team loses those points. Has anyone died before? Owen asked. Ziv blinked slowly. Many. The ship landed at sunset. The air of Crucible smelled like metal and sulfur. In the distance, red mountains reached toward 3 small moons. Nearby, a large lake bubbled with green liquid. First challenge begins at dawn, Ziv announced. Cross the lake. First team to reach the far shore wins. The human team spent the night planning while the Vorn warriors practiced combat moves. There were 6 of them, each covered in natural armor, with claws that could tear through steel. They're twice our size, Jackson whispered. How are we supposed to beat them? By being smarter, Reed said. Look at how they move. All strength, no flexibility. At dawn, both teams stood at the lake's edge. Ziv raised a light stick. Begin. The Vorn charged straight into the lake. Their heavy bodies immediately began to sink in the thick green liquid. They thrashed their powerful arms, moving forward slowly. Reed turned to Marina. Time for your idea. Marina had spent the night designing something using materials from their supply packs. Now, the team quickly built what looked like 2 large rafts made from fabric stretched over frames. We can't touch the liquid, Marina explained. It's acidic. It won't dissolve their armor, but it would burn through our skin. The humans worked together, pushing the rafts into the lake and climbing aboard. Using long poles, they began to move across much faster than the struggling Vorn. From the shore, the alien observers watched in surprise. One made notes on a device. Another spoke into a recorder. Humans show unexpected tool use and cooperation. Halfway across, one of the Vorn sank completely under the surface. When he emerged, even his armor was smoking from the acid. Another Vorn was barely moving, exhausted from fighting against his own weight in the thick liquid. The human team reached the far shore first. Reed helped pull everyone onto dry land as Marina quickly checked for acid burns. We did it, Leo said, sounding surprised. On the shore behind them, the alien observers were talking excitedly. 3 of the Vorn had made it across, but they looked worn out. The other 3 were still struggling in the lake. Krell reached the shore last, his armor partially melted. He glared at Reed with his 4 eyes narrowed. This means nothing, he growled. The real tests are still to come. 1 down, 2 to go, Reed said to his team. That night, as they camped under the 3 moons, Tanya noticed something in the Confederation records she had been studying. The Vorn don't like heat, she said. Their homeworld is cool. They overheat easily. That's good to know, Reed said, because Ziv just told me tomorrow's challenge is a race across the desert. For the first time since leaving Earth, Reed felt a small spark of hope. The Vorn were stronger, but humans had something they didn't: adaptability. Get some rest, he told his team. Tomorrow will be harder, but we can do this. As they settled down to sleep, none of them noticed the small drone watching them from the shadows, sending images back to the Vorn camp. The desert challenge proved even harder than Reed expected. The twin suns of Crucible beat down without mercy. Temperatures reached over 120 degrees by mid-morning. Sweat soaked through Reed's clothes within minutes of starting. Both teams had to cross 20 miles of sand and rock to reach an oasis. The Vorn started strong, their powerful legs driving them forward. But after an hour, they began to slow. Their heavy armor, perfect for protection, trapped heat inside. They began to pant, their movements becoming sluggish. "They're overheating," Tanya whispered to Reed. "Just like I thought." The human team kept a steady pace. Owen made everyone drink water regularly and put wet cloths on their heads and necks. Humans had evolved to sweat, to cool themselves naturally. It was an advantage none of them had expected to matter. By midday, the humans had passed all but one of the Vorn. Krell pushed himself harder than the others, refusing to be beaten again. His scales had turned a pale gray color, and his breathing was labored. "He's killing himself to win," Marina said. One of the Vorn warriors collapsed, unable to move in the heat. The observers flew overhead in small vehicles, making no attempt to help. This was a challenge of survival, not just speed. As the finish line came into view, only Reed and Krell remained at the front. Both were suffering, pushing their bodies to the limit. Reed's vision blurred from dehydration. Krell's legs trembled with each step. They crossed the line almost together. Reed fell to his knees in the shade of strange purple trees. Krell remained standing for 3 seconds, then crashed to the ground. "Humans win by 8 seconds, announced Ziv, the purple judge. While waiting for the others to finish, Tanya found time to study more of the Confederation records on her datapad. Something caught her attention, a reference to an extinct species called the Terrans. "Look at this," she showed Reed when he had recovered enough to sit up. There was another human-like species in the galaxy about 50,000 years ago. The Vorn fought a war with them. Reed studied the images. The Terrans looked remarkably similar to humans. 2 arms, 2 legs, similar facial features. "Could be a coincidence," he said. Leo joined them, looking over their shoulders. "Maybe not. Some of the observers have been whispering about us. They call us Terrans 2.0 when they think I can't hear them." That night, while the Vorn nursed their injuries and prepared for the final challenge, Leo sneaked away to speak with one of the friendlier observers, a jellyfish-like creature named Plex. Leo returned to camp with troubling news. Plex confirmed it. The Terrans were wiped out by the Vorn in a galactic war. The Confederation barely prevented total extinction. "But why challenge us?" Owen asked. "We're not the same species." "Genetically, we're close enough to make them nervous," Tanya explained. "And they've been watching our broadcasts for decades. They've seen our movies, our wars." Reed looked toward the Vorn camp. "So this isn't just about proving superiority. They're afraid of us." "They should be," Jackson said with a grim smile. As the second sun set, Ziv approached their camp. "Final challenge tomorrow. Test of intelligence and technology." After Ziv left, Marina finished repairing some equipment and joined the others. I overheard 2 observers talking. Krell received a message from the Vorn homeworld. "His leaders are not happy that we've won twice." "What does that mean for us?" Reed asked. "It means," Jackson said quietly, "that they might decide winning fairly isn't worth the risk." That night, Reed couldn't sleep. He walked to the edge of the oasis and looked up at the unfamiliar stars. Humanity had dreamed of reaching them for so long. Now they were here, fighting for the right to exist freely among them. In the darkness, something moved. Reed turned to see Krell standing nearby, watching him. "You should be resting, human," the Vorn commander said. "Tomorrow will decide everything." Reed nodded. "May the best species win." Krell made that scraping laugh sound. "We both know which species that is." As the Vorn walked away, Reed couldn't help but wonder if they would even be allowed to complete the final challenge, or if the Vorn had already decided that humans were too dangerous to let live. Morning arrived with a blood-red sky. The final challenge took place in an ancient stone structure built into the side of a mountain. Inside were passages filled with strange technology, glowing panels, floating objects, and doorways that seemed to lead nowhere. "This is a puzzle maze," Ziv explained. "You must reach the center. The path changes based on your choices. The faster team wins." Reed studied the Vorn team. They looked angry and determined. Krell stood at the front, his armor polished despite the damage from previous challenges. "Both teams enter at the same time," Ziv continued. "Different entrances, but equal distance to the center." The humans grouped together as Ziv led them to their starting point. "We need to stay together," Reed said. "Marina and Leo, take the lead on the technology puzzles. Jackson, watch our backs." The first puzzle was a wall of colored lights. Marina figured out quickly that touching them in the right pattern made a doorway appear. They moved through several rooms, solving puzzles about math, light, and sound. "Humans are good at this," Tanya said as they completed another challenge. "We love solving problems." In a large circular room, they encountered screens showing images from Earth, cities, forests, oceans. "It's testing our knowledge of our own planet," Leo realized. They answered correctly, and a new door opened. The next room contained strange floating spheres. When touched, each played a different sound. "It's a music puzzle," Reed said. "We need to create a pattern." After several tries, they found the right combination. Behind them, they heard the Vorn team entering the room they had just left. "They're catching up," Jackson warned. The next chamber was their hardest challenge yet. The floor was broken into hundreds of small platforms with empty space between them. Some platforms glowed, others were dark. "We can't jump across," Owen said. "It's too far." Marina studied the pattern. "It's binary code. The glowing platforms spell out a message." While she worked on decoding it, a loud crash echoed from behind them. The Vorn had forced their way through the music puzzle by breaking the spheres. "They're cheating," Jackson said. "They're desperate," Reed corrected. Marina solved the binary puzzle, and a bridge formed across the gap. They hurried across just as the Vorn burst into the room behind them. The next chamber contained no visible puzzle, just a dark tunnel leading downward. "I don't like this," Jackson said. "It feels like a trap." "We don't have a choice," Reed replied. "We have to keep going." They entered the tunnel cautiously. The walls were smooth and cold. After 100 feet, they heard a rumbling sound. "Run!" Reed shouted just as the ceiling began to collapse. They sprinted forward as rocks crashed down behind them. Owen stumbled, and Reed pulled him up without stopping. They barely made it to an open chamber as the tunnel sealed itself with fallen rocks. "Is everyone okay?" Reed asked, counting heads. "Only 5. "Where's Jackson?" "He was right behind me," Owen said, looking back at the blocked passage. Marina tried to move some of the rocks, but they were too heavy. "We can't go back." Reed faced a terrible choice: continue the challenge or try to save their teammate. Before he could decide, more rumbling started. "The whole place is coming down," Tanya shouted. They had no choice but to run forward. The chamber ahead glowed with blue light, the center of the maze. They were about to win, but at what cost? Just as they reached the final chamber, the Vorn team appeared from another entrance. Both teams stopped, looking at the glowing object in the center, a small pyramid that would mark the winner. Krell stepped forward. "We will take what is ours." Reed blocked his path. "This isn't right. The maze is collapsing." "Your team did something to the structure." Krell's face showed no emotion. "Prove it." "Jackson is trapped back there. We need to help him." "Weakness," Krell said dismissively. "In war, sacrifices must be made." Reed's anger flared. "This isn't war. It's supposed to be a fair challenge." As they argued, More rocks fell from the ceiling. The entire mountain seemed to be shaking. "We need to get out," Marina said. "Now." Reed looked at the exit behind the pyramid, then back toward where Jackson was trapped. Sometimes winning wasn't everything. Sometimes being human meant making the harder choice. "Help me save my friend," Reed said to Krell. "Then we can finish this properly." For the first time, the Vorn commander seemed confused by a human's actions. "You would forfeit victory. I would put life before pride," Reed answered. "Now are you going to help, or are you afraid to show compassion?" The mountain trembled again as Krell made his decision. Krell stared at Reed for what felt like forever. Rocks continued to fall around them. Finally, he made a sound like grinding metal and turned to his warriors. "Help the humans clear the passage," he ordered. Together, the two teams raced back through the maze. The Vorn's powerful arms moved boulders that humans couldn't budge. Reed was amazed to see their enemies working alongside them with such purpose. They reached the tunnel collapse where Jackson was trapped. Through a small gap in the rocks, Reed could see his friend pinned under a large stone, still breathing but badly hurt. "We need to be careful," Owen warned. The wrong move could bring everything down on him. One of the Vorn, larger than the others, stepped forward. "I will lift the main stone. You pull him out." It took both teams working together to free Jackson. His leg was broken, and he had cuts everywhere, but he was alive. Owen quickly treated the worst injuries while Marina kept watch on the increasingly unstable ceiling. "We need to move," she said as dust and small stones rained down. "This whole place is going to collapse." "The exit is through the center chamber," Krell said. "We must go back." With the Vorn carrying Jackson, they hurried through the maze. Passages that had been opened before were now blocked. Twice they had to find new routes as rooms collapsed behind them. When they reached the central chamber again, the glowing pyramid had turned red. "What does that mean?" Tanya asked. Ziv appeared suddenly from a side passage. The judge looked concerned. "The challenge is compromised. The structure is failing." "We noticed," Reed said. "Can you transport us out?" "Confederation rules forbid intervention," Ziv replied. "The challenge must be completed or failed naturally." Reed looked at the exit beyond the pyramid. "Then we're finishing this together. Both teams." Krell stepped forward. "The challenge was for one victor. And we'll both lose if we don't work together," Reed countered. More rocks fell from the ceiling. A large crack appeared in the floor between them and the exit. It was growing wider by the second. "We need something to bridge the gap," Marina said. Krell looked at his warriors, then at the injured Jackson. Without speaking, he stepped to the edge of the crack and laid his body across it. His thick armor plates formed a living bridge. "Cross," he ordered. The humans hesitated, then Reed nodded to his team. One by one, they crossed over Krell's back. Owen and another Vorn carefully carried Jackson across. Finally, only Reed and Krell remained on the wrong side of the gap. "Your turn," Reed said. Krell made his scraping laugh sound. "I am too heavy to be pulled up." The mountain shook violently. Time was running out. "I won't leave you here," Reed insisted. "You must. I have completed my mission." "What mission?" Krell's eyes fixed on Reed. "To understand why the Confederation fears humans so much, now I know." Before Reed could respond, another Vorn warrior reached across the gap and grabbed him, pulling him to safety just as the floor where he had been standing collapsed. Krell managed to climb partway up the far side, but stopped when more rocks fell. He looked at Reed one last time. "Tell your people that not all Vorn are enemies." Then the ceiling came down. The remaining humans and Vorn ran through dark passages as the mountain collapsed around them. They emerged into sunlight just as the entire structure imploded behind them. The observers' ships hovered overhead. Ziv stood nearby, speaking into a communication device. Both teams escaped. Challenge incomplete. Unprecedented situation. Reed looked at the surviving Vorn warriors. They seemed lost without their commander. "What happens now?" he asked Ziv. "The Confederation Council must decide. This has never happened before." As they waited for transport ships to arrive, Reed sat beside the injured Jackson. "You okay?" Jackson managed to smile despite his pain. "Did we win?" Reed looked at the Vorn, who were performing some kind of ritual for their fallen leader. "I'm not sure anyone won, but we survived. And I think we learned something important." "What's that?" "Even the most dangerous species in the galaxy can change." Transportation ships appeared in the sky above them. Soon they would return to the Confederation station, where the final judgment would be made. Earth's future still hung in the balance. But something had changed on that planet. For a brief moment, enemies had worked together. It wasn't much, but it was a start. The journey back to the Confederation station was quiet. Jackson rested in the medical bay with Owen watching over him. The remaining humans and Vorn warriors kept to themselves, unsure how to act around each other after what had happened on Crucible. When they arrived, armed guards met them at the docking bay. "The Council demands your presence immediately," a blue-skinned alien told Reed. The Great Council chamber was filled with representatives from dozens of species. Ambassador Thrawn stood at the center, looking troubled. The 5 remaining Vorn warriors were already there, standing stiffly in a line. "Captain Reed," Thrawn said, "the situation is unprecedented. A species challenge with no clear winner." Reed stepped forward. "With respect, Ambassador, I believe both sides won. We worked together to survive." Whispers filled the chamber. A tall, thin alien with 6 arms spoke up. "The Vorn initiated this challenge. Their commander is dead. By ancient law, the challenge is forfeit." One of the Vorn warriors stepped forward. "Commander Krell died with honor. We do not forfeit." Thrawn held up his 4-fingered hands for silence. "The Council must decide Earth's fate. The evidence has been reviewed. The observers have shared their recordings." Reed held his breath. Everything depended on this moment. A new voice spoke from the side of the chamber. "I wish to address the Council." Everyone turned to see Ambassador Plex, the jellyfish-like creature who had helped Leo. Its translucent body glowed with blue light. "I have observed these humans closely," Plex said. "They are not like the Terrans of old. When faced with victory or saving a friend, they chose the friend. When their enemies needed help, they gave it freely." Another council member, a being made of what looked like crystal, spoke next. "But they are still dangerous. Their adaptability, their problem-solving, their emotional responses, all unpredictable." "Yes," Plex agreed. "They are dangerous. But perhaps the galaxy needs their kind of danger." Reed noticed that the Vorn warriors were watching him closely. The one who had spoken earlier, now their leader, made a small gesture with his hand. Reed recognized it from Crucible. The same signal Krell had given when they worked together to free Jackson. The council debated for hours. Some argued that Earth should be isolated, others that humans should be welcomed. The Vorn delegation remained silent until near the end. Then their new leader stepped forward. "The Vorn Empire withdraws its challenge. We recognize Earth as equals." The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Thrawn looked stunned. This has never happened before. Reed approached the Vorn leader. "Why?" "Commander Krell's final orders," the Vorn said quietly. "He believed your kind might be dangerous, but necessary. He said humans have something the galaxy has forgotten. The ability to see beyond differences when survival demands it." As the council settled, Thrawn announced their decision. Earth will be granted full membership in the Confederation, with all rights and responsibilities. The Vorn Empire will establish peaceful relations. The challenge is officially recorded as resolved by mutual cooperation. That evening, as the human team prepared to return to Earth, Marina found Reed looking out at the stars. "We did it," she said. "We saved Earth." "For now," Reed replied. "But this is just the beginning." "What do you mean?" "We've entered a bigger universe than we ever imagined. full of species that think differently, live differently. There will be more challenges. Ambassador Thrawn approached them. Captain Reed, before you leave, an elder of the council wishes to speak with you privately. The elder was the oldest living member of the Confederation, a being of pure energy contained in a special field. Its voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. You wonder why so many feared humans, it said. I will tell you. You endure pain that would break others. You sacrifice for strangers. You feel emotions so strongly they override logic. You make art that moves species who can't even see in your spectrum. You create and destroy with equal passion. You are terrifying because you are unpredictable, adaptable, and unstoppable when united. Reed considered this. Those sound like strengths to me. They are. And the galaxy needs strength now more than ever. Dark times approach, Captain. Ancient enemies stir beyond the rim. The Confederation has grown comfortable, cautious, perhaps too cautious. What are you saying? That challenging the galaxy's most dangerous species was never about defeating you. It was about finding you. We needed to know if the stories were true. What stories? The Elder's energy pulsed brighter. That when everything is at stake, humans become something more than themselves. You just proved it on Crucible. As Reed's ship departed for Earth, he looked back at the station growing smaller behind them. Humanity's first steps into the galactic community had been difficult, but they had survived. More than that, they had shown the galaxy something important. Sometimes the most dangerous species was exactly what you needed when facing an uncertain future. And the future, Reed knew, was very uncertain indeed.